Hey guys, George at SoundTraxx here, and this week we wanted to take a moment away from the normal operations explanations and demonstrations to show you really some of the accessories that we offer to try to help make your installations that much more fun. And this week's accessory spotlight is going to be on our DBX-9000. What the heck is a DBX-9000? Let's get started. So the term DBX-9000 is certainly one that kind of leaves a lot to the imagination. What exactly is it? Well, the term DBX stands for drawbar connector. DBX drawbar connector. And then 9000 is just the 9 wires that you have between your locomotive and tender. Now this is a trade show demo we've been using for a while, but the original supplied connector actually broke over time. Because when you have to pick it up and store it and travel and so forth, sometimes wires get broken. And so we replaced it with a DBX-9000. So we're going to talk about some of the characteristics of what the DBX-9000 delivers. Well, first off, this gives you 9 wires to connect between your locomotive and tender. Now, most of the time when you get a factory installed connector between the locomotive and tender, you'll typically see 6 wires. Sometimes, I know some of the Broadway stuff has 8 for their cam wire and control back and forth. But the 9 wires actually gives you the flexibility to do whatever you want. Now, traditionally, the 6 wires are going to be 2 for your track pickup, your left and right rail, 2 for your motor plus, motor minus, and then, of course, 2 for the headlight. But when you only have 6 wires between the locomotive and tender, it leaves a lot, because what happens if you want to add lights? Or what if you have more lights than what that is? Well, some of the Broadway stuff I've seen has been given us 8 wires, and in some cases that can be used perfectly just fine. But our DBX-9000 gives you 9, because what that does, that gives you access to 3 additional lights. Now the headlight wires, when you have the 2 wires, you have your common blue, which is your V+, and then of course your white wire or your V- to the headlight. But that blue wire can be used for multiple purposes, and so now that gives you up to 3 additional lights that you can wire inside your locomotive, whether you're doing a cab light, firebox flicker, deciding to light the class lights, whatever you want to do. Now in some cases you may decide to do things a little bit differently. Now in this particular instance, I've had some requests to talk a little bit about the 482 Mountain that I did not too long ago on our podcast. Now, if you're not watching our podcast, you should be checking into our podcast and listening in, because we talk about a lot of the cool projects that both myself and Graham are working on a personal level. So we can share with you some of the tips and hints there, so be sure to check that out. But in this particular case, you can see I've actually chosen to put the decoder into the locomotive side. And so therefore you can see how I've wired it up in such a way so that now the decoder is sitting inside the locomotive with a decoder buddy. I used a 21-pin steam decoder so I could get access to all 8 light functions. Now the DBX-9000 that I installed, first off, if you look at this picture, you can see where I've got some shrink tubing down below where the drawbar is, where the wires can be separated, so that when that screw goes down over where the to hold the cab in place, that those wires are not now just a sea of spaghetti that we're trying to organize as we're trying to tighten it up. I've got those organized through those shrink tubing, so that's a really neat tip there for you as well. But what I did was, on the locomotive side, I did all the lights on the locomotive without having to go back and forth between the tender and the locomotive with the decoder and the tender. Now, to these wires going back to my tender on this particular project, I chose to use only 7 of the wires. The outer 2 are for track pickup. Then the next 2 are unused. So moving inward, those are unused. So then I have 2 for the speaker, and then that leaves 3 wires. And I've got 1 for the headlight, 1 for my current keeper, and the 3rd wire is my V+ blue common, which is exactly what ties into the current keeper. So now I can actually use this a little bit more flexible with the speaker and the tender and the decoder in the locomotive. So you get to use the DBX-9000 however you choose. Now, some of the other conveniences is when you're mounting the DBX, you can actually put the small circuit board on the tender side, or you can do it on the locomotive side. It just depends on the design. Here you can see a picture from one of our friends, Tom, who used the DBX-9000 under the drawbar, and he put the DBX-9000 under the drawbar screw, and then the wires went into the tender. So you get to be creative and use it however you see fit. Now, the advantage is the center hole on that circuit board is designed to take a 256 screw. So it's nice and easy to install it. Now, most of the times in the Bachmann model, or in this case, this Broadway Limited, we've actually installed it in there. But one of the biggest things I want to point out is we've actually selected some very, very super flexible wire that also allows you to get the amperage that you need back and forth between the locomotive and tender. The reason for that is so that there's no additional tension between the locomotive and tender that might be caused by stiff wires or something, because when you're tightening these up, these wires are flexing in almost like a horseshoe shape. And so if you're selecting some stiff wire, what can happen is you may have your locomotive and tender running down the track, cockeyed like this, because the tension between the locomotive and tender wires is just way too much. But between these are pretty flexible, so that way you can have a nice smooth running and looking locomotive that runs down your track without ever having any tension or anything like that. Like you can see here, I'm moving this thing left and right, and it just stays because those wires are super flexible. So beware of any imposter DBX-9000s that you may find out there, because they may not have the same thought put into it as we did with our DBX-9000s through SoundTraxx. So the best thing about this is it's actually fairly inexpensive to use. It's an MSRP of $19.95. But look at what you get. You get the flexibility that you can rewire the locomotive however you see fit. You can actually put all these different lights and so forth on there. So you can take advantage of all the features the decoders offer for you in your decoder installation. So guys, that's everything I've got for you this week on this product highlight called the DBX-9000. So I do want to encourage you guys to subscribe to our channel if you're not already, and be sure to like this video. If you have any comments or questions or thoughts about the DBX-9000, please leave them in the comments section below. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.